Here we are. We are in, for the first time ever, Ducks Don't Get Cold Feet podcast has moved to a location that I'll let you explain later on. But we are here with Joanne Hartstone, and Joanne has done so many things, some in front of people, some behind the scenes, anywhere from a playwright, actor, director. You've been in theatre, and the list goes on. You're a business owner. It's actually astounding the amount of things that you've done. So welcome to Ducks Don't Get Cold Feet, Joanne.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
So you're a multi-award winning South Australian theatre maker. Your energy on stage is amazing. I'd have to say, after watching so much of your content, the amount of voices that you can do, I'm assuming you only have some voices in your head.
I must do. Something's got to explain it.
Because, you curate, you teach, you're a director, writer. It's really amazing. And the fact is that I've only just met you recently, and after Googling a fair bit, I've noticed you've been around the world and you've done so much for South Australia. We were doing these little fringe editions to try and help with our little bit that we can do with helping with the Adelaide Fringe and the amazing things Adelaide Fringe does for everyone that's in it. And I only recently found out that you can actually go into the Fringe if you pay your money and give it a crack.
Absolutely. Anyone can do that. You can do that.
Oh, that's the scary part, because we all joked about what we could talk about, and I don't know if we could do that. But I think, it's not about me today. This is about you. We've got a short period of time. So I do want to go into where you started off. And from what we've seen, by the age of 5, you started acting?
Yeah, I was acting and dancing. I actually, in hindsight, I think that dancing and acting are very closely paired. So when I was very, very young, I asked my parents to send me to a ballet class. I wanted to dance, I wanted to twirl, all those sorts of things. And then at the age of 5, I was doing my first end-of-year concert, as you do at a ballet school. And, of course, I was up the front doing all the faces and smiling and loving it, and all the other kids were sort of, picking their nose and pulling their wedgies and, not quite sure what they were doing. And I think from there I really got the buzz of being on stage, and also the reaction I got from my parents afterwards saying, "That was really good, Joey. Well done."
Well, I've seen my little girls. They're not doing what you're doing. They weren't picking their nose, but they were pretty close to being in the background going, "What the hell am I doing here, Mum, Dad?" They definitely weren't doing the jazz hands.
Oh, I was doing the jazz hands.
Which I could totally see.
Yeah, and I think from there, it sometimes people just have this thing in them. Because I've been a teacher now for many, many years, I've seen young people come through just like me who have just kind of got it and they want to show it off, and they actually need that platform in which to do it. So I think young person training in the performing arts is actually vital to keep this kind of ecology going. So
did you have parents that were in that sort of scene with acting and theatre, or were you like the first one?
Well, my father will probably laugh or tell me off for mentioning it. They were both teachers by the time I started. Yep. My mum then went on to become a psychologist and is very respected in her field. My father continued to be a teacher, but before he was doing that, he was actually the lead singer and guitarist of a band called the Headstones.
Okay, what sort of music were the Headstones?
I think they were doing mostly, covers and things like that at gigs and things like that. They weren't long lasting, and he owned a record shop as well. So he was interested in music and theatre, and he actually plays guitar on one of the tracks in my new show, The Reichstag Is Burning. So it's a bit of a family affair.
Hey, full circle, bringing it back together.
But actually, I think because they were teachers, I saw them communicating in front of people, working a crowd of hostiles, shall I say.
That's good.
So I think that's partly where I got it. It's certainly where I learned how to teach the craft of performance. But my brother is a psychiatrist. He's in medicine. So
he's probably trying to read all of you to let you know where you all sit in the equation.
Well, you did mention the voices in my head before, so but he hasn't told me there's anything actually wrong. He just thinks I'm, eccentric and creative.
So I'm assuming this stayed with you through schooling.
Yes.
You're an Adelaide girl?
Absolutely, yeah,
you were
proudly
born up
so.
in north, south, east, west?
Yeah, I was in the northeast, went to Val Park Primary School.
Yep.
Then I went to Annesley College. And so I've been in Adelaide and I had these opportunities to keep doing shows and, school concerts and things like that. And I did dancing and acting and singing outside of school as well. And then at the end of year 12, I thought, all right, I'll audition to get into Flinders Drama Centre. I'll see how I go. And I was actually one of 5 women who were accepted in my year to get into this very exclusive course, which was a 4-year bachelor's degree.
So in doing that and in saying that, do you believe that if there's a young up-and-comer coming through, do you think they need to go to uni to be in theatre or to be in acting?
I think there needs to be training. I think that acting is one of these elusive things that you can have a go and you can wing it, and some people have just got that natural spark. And they don't necessarily need to have a lot of training, particularly in film, I think. It's very reactive and responsive to the moment, and you can try again and again, and you can nail that one take, and that's all you need.
Yeah.
But for theatre, you really need discipline. You need to have the muscle skill, you need to have the stamina, and also you need to have the mental capacity to be able to learn all those lines and learn the stage craft, and also then deal with when things go wrong on stage, as they always do.
And to back it up night after night after night.
Absolutely.
So since we're talking about acting, I noticed that in theatre, the actors, is it actresses, or there's just actors?
There's just actors these days.
So when they come up and they produce, they say their lines, and you're talking pages of lines in some
thousands
occasions.
of words.
Thousands. How do you go about remembering?
Oh
lines?
gosh, it's a fascinating thing how memory works, isn't it?
And everyone's different. Like I know, since we do stuff here, and I have to remember lines occasionally, which I'm not the best at, but multiple lines, it's like, okay, I can bumble through it. And then now we use some other techniques there, but I started doing a Jim Quick course, and he talks about using stories to intertwine to get, and that works. That actually works for me. And I like drawing pictures, and I don't have any to show you.
Well, actually, you've hit the nail on the head there, because your memory works in pictures, not words.
Yeah.
So if I said the word elephant, you see an elephant in your mind rather than the word ELE, etc.
Totally.
Right? So actually what you need to do is create a picture chain in your mind, and then you associate things with pictures and also chains that you know well. So numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can link something to number 1, link something to number 2, or then you could link something to the alphabet.
Yep.
That chain as well. You could also use a room that you know really well, and as you visualise moving around the room and you see the television and the couch and the wall and the picture, as you can visualise that, you can then link things to those objects as well. So there are there's loads of techniques that you can use to sort of quickly remember things by using these things.
They were the similar.
Absolutely.
So he was saying, like, go into your house, something that you know extremely well.
Yeah.
And then, mine was coming into the driveway, then the door opening, then the garage, then that opens up and I can see the kids' room, and then I can see a view there. Then and to keep walking through the house. And it was amazing how that worked. And in fact, they had a thing about the periodic table, and this is pretty funny because memory needs work.
Of course.
And at one stage, I was blasting, I think the top 50 elements of maybe more.
Yes.
And it was 10. And then I went, I can do 20 and 30
course.
and 40. And then I pieced it together. I don't know if I got to 100, but it was a lot.
Yes.
But I haven't done it for years. And now I'm thinking, fuck, I don't even know what the first one is. Do you know what I mean? Oh, it's water maybe. But
You'd be surprised. Your muscle memory would probably kick in.
Pick it up pretty quick.
And you'd go, oh, hang on, no, I've remembered a sequence somewhere in there. But you've also said something interesting. You wanted to learn the periodic table.
Correct.
And you actually have to want to memorize stuff. If it's a maths test and you can't, really be bothered and it's something that you have to do to pass year 10, you actually struggle to get past that barrier of wanting to learn it. But if it's something that you feel is important to learn, your brain will actually work a little bit better to memorize.
And that's exactly how it worked. And now I use techniques for board meetings to try and remember things. So I use dates and times. So it tries to picture, that was then. So, it's interesting. I think everyone's different.
Don't forget your emotion, though. And your emotion is actually one of the biggest drivers of memory. If you think about the things we remember from our past, they tend to be the more serious or dramatic or traumatic experiences. And that's because negative emotion has a much stronger link in your brain to memory. But positive emotions, so a wedding or first dates or, all of those lovely things as well, they also have very strong links to your memory capacities as well. So put emotion with your memory, whether it be good or bad, and that will also trigger what you're needing to memorize.
Yeah, he even went to talking into using a lip balm for certain things that had a smell.
Yeah. Oh, smell is the biggest trigger.
Yeah,
senses.
I was right. I got into it, and it definitely made a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it needs consistent training.
I don't know that I do a lot of that when I'm on stage, to be honest with you, because when I'm performing, by the time I'm on the stage, the memorization is kind of only sort of step 2, and then you remember, why you're there. You remember the communication, and that the words just sort of trickle in like water, and they're there, and you just rely on them, and then it's all your other stagecraft which is taking over on stage. So people always say, how do you remember all of those lines?
Yeah.
I just do because I have to, and it's there. It's very strange.
Yeah, it's incredible. One of the other things I noticed, you have a fair few voices.
I do.
That they're very good.
Thank you.
Like very convincing. You had an American one there that I watched you for a while. Is it easy to turn on a voice and off a voice, and how much training really goes to getting the voice right? And, I like Margot Robbie. There's no secret of that. If she ever wants to do a podcast, I'm here. But she says that she spent all of her money on voice training. Mm-hmm. Is it real? Is it really hard?
It is hard. I'm not going to diminish it. It is hard, but you also have to have an ear for it. And when I was young, funny, it's all starting when I was young, but I used to mimic the voices that I would see on movies. Yep. So I'd do a Marilyn Monroe, for example.
Can you do any?
Oh.
Or doesn't?
I have a thing about saxophone players, especially tenor sax. I don't know what it is. All they have to do is play 8 bars of Come to Me, My Melancholy Baby. I get all goose pimply all over.
That's so good. You've got heaps.
Yeah, I do.
I'm like, do you have any for your current performance?
So the performance I'm doing with the Reichstag Is Burning is a brand new character, which is inspired by an actual woman called Jean Ross. And Jean Ross was the inspiration for the character Sally Bowles in the musical Cabaret. Yep. Now, in the film Cabaret, Liza Minnelli couldn't do a British accent, so they made her American. But actually, in real life, she was British. And she went to Europe, and particularly Berlin, and was a performer in Weimar Cabaret. So my character, which is Iris London, Iris was Jean's middle name, she's British with elements of German coming through in her expressions of German words.
Reichstag.
And exactly, the Reichstag, Weimar, and all my R's are, like this. So it's a very affected accent, shall I say.
So with with you're the director of.
I'm not the director.
Not of this one, no.
No, my partner Tom Kitney is director and designer of the Reichstag Is Burning, and he is responsible for the absolute technical whiz-bangery of the production. Like, it will blow your socks off. I almost feel that some people might disagree with me, but I think that the theatre is actually the main character of the Reichstag Is Burning.
Yep.
And I think that I am the spirit of the cabaret that the theatre has sort of evoked to tell this story. But it's actually, because it's got projection, it's got lights, it's got lasers, it's got pyrotechnics, it's got haze, it's got automation, every little trick you can think of, magic and stuff. That's Tom. And so Tom has designed this world, this theatre that speaks and wobs and takes you on this journey. And then Iris is there to sing the songs and show you the counterpoints and just juxtapositions.
So why we're talking about the Black Box Theatre.
The Black Box Theatre, yes.
Right. So you're an owner of that.
Yes, my partner and I are co-owners.
Is it you and Tom?
Yes, I'm 51%. He's 49%.
Just get that correct. All right, that's on record. If you ever need to look up, I hope you bloody don't. But this is you go to a lot of fringe shows, and they're definitely not equipped like this room is.
No.
And people can't see it here, but it's black in here. You got the stage, and it looks like a tiny, like a small miniature version of the entertainment centre put into a black box.
It really is. I actually think for the size, we're under 100 seats, and during COVID we're under 50 seats. It's probably the most technically advanced theatrical space of its kind in Australia. We can do pretty much anything in here and create worlds out of nothing. That's the concept of the black box. The black box is the empty universe in which the artist can create something from, like the blank canvas, I guess. So that's cool. Where Black Box Theatres has come from, because it's not our only space, although the black box in which we're in at the moment is our flagship space.
So you do many other shows other than the Adelaide Fringe.
Yes.
But you started in the Adelaide Fringe like 2007.
Yeah, 2006 actually.
2006.
Yeah. I had to count backwards actually, because this is my 16th Adelaide Fringe, but there was one year I think they hadn't gone into every year yet. So I found a poster.
There's always
and it said,
one year.
I know, there's always one.
We've learnt this when we had Matt Tarrant yesterday, and there was 1 year he didn't get an award, and he was like, we don't talk about we don't talk about 2008.
Yeah.
But for you, one of the awards, you were Emerging Artist of the Year for the Adelaide Critics Circle.
Yes, I was nominated for that.
So when was that?
Oh, gosh, I can't even remember. 2009, 2008? 2009 it must have been, I think.
The Adelaide Theatre Guide's Best Female Performer.
That was 2012 with my production of Misery, I believe. I played the Kathy Bates character, Annie Wilkes, in Misery, where, she's the psychotic nurse who falls in love or is obsessed with this romance writer. And I played her as I was obviously not that old at the time, so I was playing her as very psychotic and aggressive. And that got me a nomination for that as well, which was really great.
So what other awards, or is there been an award that you're extremely proud to get?
Last year, for 2020, I was the recipient of the Frank Ford Award.
Now, that is a big award.
It's a huge award.
Yeah.
It's probably the most prestigious award I've received. But also it means a lot to me because I knew Frank. He came to see my shows several times with his partner Sam, who of course is such a huge supporter of the arts as well. And Frank gave me encouragement also through the Independent Arts Foundation. He helped me go to Edinburgh. He helped me go to New York. He gave me a bit of mentorship, actually, as most South Australian artists you'll speak to go, oh, Frank Ford, he gave me, this piece of advice, or, sat me down for coffee and had a chat about this. And so his legacy that he has infiltrated through the South Australian art scene is quite something. One person can make a difference, and he has certainly made a huge difference to all of us. So being the recipient of that award, it was timely because it was right as COVID was hitting, and the award was to tour shows.
Oh my God, are you
interstate and
serious?
internationally. Yeah, with a small bursary to do so. So I've actually put that aside and said, no, I'm going to create a new show so that once the world opens up again, I will have something in which Frank would be proud. And also because he was one of the founders of the Adelaide Cabaret Festival, it's another reason why I chose the genre of cabaret to embrace with the Reichstag Is Burning. So that, you know, I hope if Adelaide Cabaret Festival are listening, maybe they might pick it up.
Shameless plug. We love it. Don't worry.
So that's, I think that's probably one of my proudest awards. That, and I think the inaugural Made in Adelaide Award, which was to take the girl who jumped off the Hollywood sign to Edinburgh.
So I mean, that's an interesting story in itself.
Yeah.
Hollywood sign is owned by someone here in South Australia.
Which I found out when I was in Hollywood. Isn't that great? Good old Adelaide.
A little old Adelaide. But the interesting part is you actually went to Hollywood.
I did, with my show, yeah.
So with the show.
Yeah.
So what was that like? You know, was that your first time overseas, or had you been to Edinburgh before that?
I'd been to Edinburgh plenty of times before that, but it was my first time taking my shows and being a performer overseas. So I'd been going to Edinburgh and working as a producer and a publicist and general manager of theatre companies, which is why I know how to do all of this sort of behind-the-scenes back-end work, and then, you know, curate my own festivals now and run my theatres and that sort of thing.
And then do the acting.
And then acting came on top. Yeah. I sort of thought, if I'm making all of these shows happen for all of these excellent other people, why aren't I making shows happen for myself? So that's where I started writing The Girl Who Jumped Off the Hollywood Sign.
Well, that was your first solo show.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, it was. And I took a punt, and I believe I registered it in the Adelaide Fringe before I had finished writing it.
Oh, excellent.
You know,
That's nothing like pressure.
I know, but I was like, nah, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to put myself out there and see how I go. And then it was rehearsed in my living room with a friend, Vince Fusco, who was directing. And it was just this lovely the little show that could, I believe we were coining it at the time. And then it went on to win the Made in Adelaide Award. And then straight after that, I think like 3 days later, I got on a plane to Hollywood.
Yeah. Yep.
And it was bonkers because one of the things that had happened throughout the Adelaide Fringe season was the Hollywood Sign Trust had Google alerts about the words Hollywood Sign. They wanted to see where it was coming up in the media. Yeah. And suddenly the Trust started getting all of my reviews, all of these really amazing reviews about this show set in Hollywood. And then my father sent them an email saying, I don't know if you might have heard, my daughter's coming to Hollywood and she's got a show which is actually quite good. I know I'm biased, but, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, so typical Adelaide.
Every dad, I would hope, would do that.
Well, my dad particularly, like, talk about theatre dads of SA. Like, my dad's so up there. And so then also, strangely, the housemates that I was staying with, who I just met off Craigslist, I was looking for somewhere to stay, and they're now actually my lifelong friends. They were friends with someone who also worked at the Hollywood Trust. So there was like this three-pronged kind of way in which they all said, we need to get this lady up on the Hollywood sign in costume, photo shoot, promote, celebrate. And so I was taken to the Hollywood sign. I had to scale down the mountain via a rope with my costume on, and then all the security, you know, came straight at us. And then they were, you know, said, no, it's fine. They're with us, blah, blah, blah. This is a photo shoot. My producer, Matt, who was with me, I remember it was so high. He was like, I don't think I can go down. It's actually really quite terrifying. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm Australian. I can do it. You know, I'll just go.
I've got spiders.
Yeah.
I'm spend my whole life defending.
It's fine, you know. There's nothing, mate. You should see the Flinders Rangers.
There's probably no snakes there either.
It was actually a real privilege, not just to be there at the Hollywood sign and to see where these events took place, but also to show Hollywood itself back, you know, to say this is your sordid past. And what was also happening at this time was the Metoo movement started.
Yep.
And so I had written this show, which was about the abuse of power in Hollywood, and then suddenly Me
And then it
Too.
comes- so the timing.
It was very odd.
So this is like the Weinstein.
Absolutely.
Right at the forefront
It was
of that.
happening right then.
So you were in and you're in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And you had this show already, you've already done it multiple times.
Yeah, it
here.
existed, yes.
And then you went over to Hollywood and performed it there multiple times?
Yeah, multiple times in their Hollywood Fringe, which is much smaller than the Adelaide Fringe. You know, they're much more film festival focused. But the idea behind Hollywood Fringe is that it was supposed to give their actors a chance to showcase their work. But then I've come over as an actual theatre maker and shown them, no, it's not just one person standing up in a light. This is a play.
Yeah.
And it got rave reviews. It got so many awards, and it was utterly incredible to be there and show Hollywood how it's done by South Australians. It was great.
No, that is cool. And I think when you look at people from Adelaide and people that go to the Adelaide Fringe, I think people underestimate how big the Adelaide Fringe is.
Yeah, I think we take it for granted a little bit, don't we?
100%.
Because it's
I've
always
just
been
learned
there.
that it's the second biggest fringe in the world.
And currently the largest.
And currently we were lucky enough that we finished right on the start of COVID, and we started straight away. And people totally underestimate it.
Yes,
and
I think so.
I'll be honest, I'm one of those people. I just assumed there'd be a massive event in Hollywood or massive everywhere else. But no, this is the biggest. And seeing how the Fringe gives back to the actors or theatre, whoever's in it, the acts, is quite encouraging to see how much they actually give back to the...
My career wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for Adelaide Fringe. And I say this wholeheartedly. You know, I'm not an ambassador for Adelaide Fringe, although, again, love to be, plug out.
It's like I'm speaking to myself. This is excellent.
But the Adelaide Fringe gives us that beautiful opportunity to create something new, put it in front of an audience, get that critical feedback. If it's no good, fine. You know what? We learn as artists from it. But if it is really good, it then has this magic effect because the world is watching and it gets picked up and you get tours and you get reviews and you get audiences. You know, there's so many reasons for doing it and suddenly your profile lifts.
Yeah.
But typical Adelaide, we tend not to recognise our own until they go overseas and do really well and then come back.
Yeah, and I can almost say that about most people we've spoken to on the podcast, the same sort of deal. And we had an artist in and she was quite snooty that, you know, she's got all these performances and everything around the world, yet doesn't even have a piece in the in Adelaide, I think it was Adelaide Art Gallery. And I was like, I don't get it.
It's really strange, isn't it? And I think it's the South Australian mentality of, nah, mate, like we're just Adelaide, it's not that great. We need to change that for many reasons. One of the biggest reasons is because our arts industry is suffering throughout the world and Adelaide has a unique opportunity to be the leader in its emergence. But we can't do it unless our community is behind it. And we can't take arts for granted. It does need funding, which, you know, is a bit of a tricky subject to talk about because, you know, when you've got things like hospitals that need funding and schools that need funding, funding the arts seems like a difficult thing. But actually the percentage that is needed is so tiny compared to the rest that actually, if you lift that, you will find significant knock-on effects throughout the other economies in South Australia. So we definitely need more funding and more solid ways of funding emerging artists and smaller companies like my own. I'm unfunded. And also the grants system that we have is hugely problematic because artists are spending most of their time applying for grants rather than making the work.
Well, it's too bloody hard. I mean, our own business can clearly show how difficult it is to actually get a grant.
Yes.
Like, you're getting a grant to pay someone to let you know if you can do a project. Shouldn't we just get the grant so we can do the project?
Exactly.
The government's proven they can waste money very well. Like
Yeah.
$1 billion for a hospital that probably should have been 500 million is a joke. And that's because people in business aren't running the projects. And for me, I'm a big one of, I agree with you. Being an artist, being a comedian or a theatre, there's not that much money unless you make it to, it's like golf, the top 1% make a lot of money.
Exactly.
But to get to that stage of when you got a show on Netflix or, you're selling out crowds at the comedy festival or theatre, it's extremely difficult. And people just totally underestimate it. And I think money should go to people that are willing to give it a crack. You're showing off the South Australia, Adelaide.
To the world, actually.
Totally. And it really frustrates me that we hear about all these grants that, are extremely difficult to actually get. And like you said, you spend half your time trying to figure out how to get the money. And then by the time you've got it, you're probably over it anyway.
No, I wouldn't say so. I'm very grateful for any money that comes my way, to be honest with you.
It must be just us. But it's hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. And also not all artists are necessarily wordsmiths.
Yep, correct.
And, to be able to articulate your vision, your artistic vision in words and budgets is not necessarily the best way in order to feed the cycle. I don't necessarily know what the answer is. More money, I think, would be great, and also funding people to be an artist all year round. Maybe like JobKeeper. If you can qualify and say that you're a practicing artist all year round, you could get JobKeeper to stay on and do that work, and then every year you show the fruit of that labour rather than having to kind of create it on paper first. Maybe that's the way to go.
Do you think it'd be fair to have a system where when you eventually do get money, if you do, that it's reasonable that that's paid back?
I think
a system like that.
I think aunts sponsorship or what's the word I'm looking for? The
grant system?
No, the people who, we call them angels, the people who give money back into
like angel investors.
The investors of the arts. For example, let's take Frank Ford. Now, Frank was not always, an affluent man in his life, humble beginnings, and he worked very hard in his own craft and then bringing up the arts industry around him. And he's now left a legacy in which there's small bursaries in which, for example, the Frank Ford Award, to take shows and tour them. Now that is exactly the example you're talking about, that he has come to a point, he came to a point in his life where he could give back financially, and he did so. If I got to a point where I could give back financially, I'm already doing it. I'm spending my life savings, risking it to create a fringe festival venue and to put on shows to give back to the arts industry and the South Australian community as a whole, and actually send it out to the world. Because one of the things we've invested in through a little bit of crowdfunding and support from the Muriel Matters Society and also from Microsoft is Black Box Live, which is live streaming 46 of our shows from Black Box theatres and sending it out to the world. Now that makes us the largest live stream venue in the world.
Go you.
And 46 shows over 5 weeks is insane amount of live stream. It's what's needed in this new world, but this is an entrepreneurship. We're partnering with the artists to make it possible. We've got a team of cinematographers and filmmakers who are making the live stream. Like, I'm calling it piloting because they're literally mixing on the fly, sending it out live. Yeah. And I've watched back the product, and it's really been spearheaded by my partner, Tom Kitney, who, is using all of his tricks, including his media degree. And this is absolutely arts entrepreneurship and creating new avenues or new revenues for artists. And we're doing this in South Australia, sending it out to the world. If we can do this here, imagine if people can embrace it, our community can embrace it and celebrate the work coming from South Australia. We will be the leaders in the re-emergence of the arts the arts world across everywhere,
It's like a modern day Wayne's World.
Yeah.
a little bit more sophisticated, but getting yourself out to the world.
Absolutely.
And I when I was Googling you, I could see how you had it structured for the live feeds.
Yeah.
I actually didn't see the price of the live. Is it the same?
It's slightly cheaper.
Yeah,
so you
cheaper.
can watch at home.
Yeah.
You know, there's loads of people at home at the moment across the world. And I think we've usually priced it about a $15 ticket.
Okay. I mean, that's...
£8 or something from the UK. It's really reasonable. It's enough so that you're saying, I'm actually giving something and investing in seeing this.
Yeah.
I recognise that it's an independent project. It's not Netflix.
Yeah.
But it's enough to say, I've bought a ticket, I want to see it. Let's have a look at what it's like. And the quality is superb because of the equipment that we've invested in using. It's astounding. Like, I really encourage people to have a look at Black Box Live. And if you can't get to the theatre, which many people can't for whatever reason.
Well, like Melbourne.
Exactly. Or, people in Port Lincoln might not be able to travel to Adelaide.
Just for the night.
Or, and so they can say, right, what's happening in the indie art scene in Adelaide? Oh, I can watch it. So, there's loads of shows over 5 weeks that people can tap into.
Are you the only one doing that for Adelaide Fringe?
I believe so.
I reckon no one else is.
There are a few live streams coming through. I know Rumpus Theatre, for example, have got a couple of live streams, but they don't have the equipment the Black Box Live equipment that we're using. And it really does make us the largest live stream venue in the world.
That's so cool. I'd love to see how much overseas traffic you eventually pick up.
We're getting a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
We've got friends in the UK.
Okay, definitely. Yeah.
I've got family in America. So but it's not just family and friends at this stage. We are actually getting people who are starting to hear about it and starting to tune in and see these works. And we're perfectly placed. At the moment, people are hungry for content, and there's that element of live. They know it's live.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. It's a little bit like watching Olympic ice skating. You never know when they can fall over.
There's a lot of Bradbury jokes going through my head right now.
Hopefully we don't come first just because we're the only ones standing, but that might be true.
Well, it'll take whatever you can get. You have, with the live stream, on the cutting edge of that, and we talked about how, like, opening nights, anything can happen, and by the time do you get more polished by the time you get through month of theatre?
Here's a little secret. My preview performance was actually only my second full run through.
Yeah, okay.
Because of the time, we built a theatre to make the show happen. So building the theatre, building the activation all around it, curating 20 other shows, it meant that we were doing tech rehearsals at midnight and, trying to find bits and pieces here and there. So I've actually done the show now in front of an audience 3 times. I've done it full through 4 times and I'm getting stronger and stronger because I feel more confident in knowing the choreography of the show, in knowing the journey of the show. And so I just really encourage people to come and see it now. The Reichstag Is Burning, I think might be one of the best things Tom and I have made because it really is like it's the stuff of dreams and also nightmares. It's the stuff of other worlds. It's a warning from the past and it's a projection of the future and it really takes you out of the here and now, but also firmly kind of gets at your guts at how important it is for each and every one of us to participate in our society. Excuse me, and also to embrace the arts. Yeah. Because really that's what the show is also about, is about the purge of culture that happened in the in Weimar Republic as the Nazis were taking over. Yeah. So it's celebrating the arts and come and see it, come and support it, and come and see how strong it is now after a few shows.
There's no doubt that you need to get down to Black Box Theatres. You've got 4 venues.
4 venues, that's right.
This is one?
Yeah, the Black Box Theatre is our flagship. We've also got the Amphitheatre, which is outside, which has got music. We've got children's performances. We've got the world premiere of Blinky Bill the Musical in the Amphitheatre, which is going to be terrific. We've got some theatre shows. Catherine Swartini is in there with her new solo show. I've got music in the amphitheatre. It's a gorgeous space, and also outdoors, which means we can social distance and we can, really give people a wonderful experience. We've also got the open air theatre, which is in the International Rose Garden.
Okay, that's just... no one can see.
No one can see at the moment. We can point over there.
It's pointing over there.
Yeah. It's just outside in the International Rose Garden, and it is absolutely stunning. It's a pop-up theatre, which means it's being built every single day, and it's housing some amazing cabaret and music shows and spoken word shows. It's just what a wonderful night under the stars in the open air theatre.
So I buy my ticket for your show.
Yep.
Can I go to the other shows? I buy tickets to each of the shows.
Buy a ticket to whichever show you want to go to.
So if I come down for a night,
yep.
Could I expect to see a couple of shows?
You absolutely can.
Yep.
So if you were to say, right, what am I going to see at Black Box Theatres, you might start with Hatch, Match and Dispatch outside in the open air theatre.
Yeah.
Then you've got about 50 minutes until the next show starts.
So you can have some drinks?
You can have some drinks. You can have a picnic.
Okay.
And you can also go to our Arcade Theatre, which is a tiny theatre that Tom Kitney has created using the interactive video game created by Joshua Kernich, and it's called The Thought That Counts, and it's a 10-minute little mini experience, interactive kind of arcade game where you choose the thoughts of the character, and each thought takes you on a different possible choice through an adventure about resilience, friendship, positive mental health, and then the arcade also echoes your choices. So when the lightning goes, the strobes flash, and it's really cool, and it's really tiny. So that's a lovely little thing that you can do in between. So you can really spend your night at Black Box Theatres and have an amazing cultural experience with a hugely diverse program. You can bring family, you can have a picnic in the Rose Garden. It's just a wonderful night out.
Say no more. It's very clear. I think there's a whole lot of things that have come up with the Fringe and the aspect of mental health and getting people to, try and get back to normal in the best way possible. I personally don't think we've seen the effects of what having people, maybe a bit scared, frightened at home. I think all walks of life, I think there's going to be some dramas moving forward, and it seems like everyone's quite aware of it this year compared to any other year.
Absolutely. I think that as a society, we need to invest in our own resilience, and we do that by giving ourselves positive experiences, taking a chance on going and seeing a show, get yourself out of the house, or watch online if you can't leave the house, connecting with people, keeping that connection going, whether it's phone calls or whether it's in person, and remembering the small little beauties in the world, that even when everything else is kind of traumatic and falling around us, actually there's still little fractures of beauty or joy or connection or love that as a whole, that's what we need to remind ourselves of. And we're really lucky in South Australia that we can go out and experience a Fringe Festival.
Oh, totally.
But it does also mean the world is watching with a lot of envy. So we better not rub it in too much, and we better invite them to watch from overseas.
They can watch online. God.
Yeah.
It's mental health for a reason, because a lot of it is up here in the mind, and a lot of stress is 80% in the mind, and 20% it actually... 80% of the time it never happens, and 20% it does.
Although I feel stress in my body. I don't know about you. Like when I have an anxiety attack or something, I'll have a physical response to it, which is why it's hard to just think, oh, it's just in my head.
Well, that might be the 20%.
Well, that's exactly right. Of course it starts in the mind with that chemical crash. Of what happens. I do have a psychologist for a mother and a psychiatrist as a father, as a brother. So I know a little bit about these things. But I think that actually the arts is the counterpoint to all of this. The arts industry and our arts creation is our way through, which is why now more than ever, it's so important that we support all of our artists to give us these moments of joy, to give us these different truths that we can connect with, to confront us and to broaden our minds, to quicken our minds in different ways.
Well, you go back over many centuries and, whether it's from the Romans, I'm not saying that's like at the Colosseum or anything, it's quite violent, but there was always...
That was still an art form.
An art form. And like people would surround and crowd to watch, Shakespeare and that hasn't changed. It's just evolved, and now we're doing things live where you don't even need to be there to be able to get the same enjoyment.
What was it Winston Churchill said during the war? He refused to defund the theatres, and they said, why? And he said, what else are we doing this for?
Yeah.
So you have to, in times of crisis, our arts are the things that need the most strengthening. And I think then that will have a knock-on effect to all of our mental health.
No doubt. Well, we're getting close to time, so...
We could talk forever, couldn't we?
Yeah, that's why this is the shortest we've ever gone. But I do have some wrap-up questions.
Yes, of course.
If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing?
Oh, gosh. That's such a hard thing to say because I'm doing so much.
Yeah, I didn't want to ask because I gather is there a bit of rivalry between movies and theatre, or...
It's a different art form,
yeah,
certainly.
totally different.
But, certainly.
Do you have any aspirations to be in a movie?
I would love to be in film. I think that it's. I have been in film and miniseries. I was actually in Deadline Gallipoli, which was on Foxtel.
Okay.
I played Clementine Churchill for about 3 lines, and it was wonderful. I'd still love to do those things. I also think teaching will always be a part of my world. I've been teaching acting since I was 17 years old, and now I'm a qualified high school teacher, and I've been teaching high school for quite some time when I'm not touring. And I think that that's a very important part of my contribution to our society is through education.
Yeah.
So I think that will continue to be part of what I do. And if I wasn't doing this, well, at the moment I'd probably be having a massive sleep. I'd be playing with my dogs, spending time with my beautiful family and my partner Tom, and spending time with my friends, and probably eating way too much delicious South Australian product. I'd probably go to Drake's and just spend like an hour just choosing all of my favourite foods and just going, I could eat all of this.
Well, they're great things to be doing. I totally encourage you to be doing all of those all of the time. If you could go back in time, and knowing what you know now, what could you tell an aspiring Joanne at the age of 10 or so, or 15 or whatever it is? What piece of worldly advice could you give them?
I'd tell little me not to worry so much. And I'd tell little me that people are going to love you. It's going to be fine. The world isn't against you. You can have confidence in yourself, but also remember to be humble. I think that when I was 10, I didn't know where my place in the world was because I was so theatrical, and, my friends probably were like, what is she on, crazy little girl sort of thing. But actually, I think I don't think she'd believe me if I said you're going to be an international performer, you're going to run your own theatres, you're going to have an amazing partnership, you're going to be absolutely fine and you're going to have a lot of potential. I'd love to know what 70-year-old me would tell me now at 36 or whatever I am, because I think that will also be another interesting kind of maybe don't worry so much.
It's almost similar advice.
I think it's possibly similar advice. And I think I'd say keep going, keep following your dream, because a lot of people will find value in what you do and recognise the hard work that you put in, but you still got to put in the hard work.
Beautiful words, sir. If there was one thing that you could do that could change the world, what would it be?
Oh,
this
is a really big question, isn't it?
Some people focus on themselves on this question, and some people actually focus on the planet. So there's ways. Either way,
I think I'd really love to reformat social media actually. I know that's happening a little bit at the moment, but I think that one of the parallels I've seen as I've been making the Reichstag Is Burning was the misinformation coming out and how that leads a gap for polarization.
Well, I mean, Hitler was a master
Of propaganda.
without a doubt, produced
Yeah.
all of his own content.
Yeah.
And it was amazing what he actually did to release to the world. And back then, when you're the only one releasing it, it's a bit of a different story.
So,
but now it's even done by probably people that, some would say are worse than Hitler.
I think that it's a real issue that opinion has become fact. And we're not quite sure where the line is anymore. And so, valuing journalists and news media and trusting them and establishing that trust. I mean, I'd also love to say things like, let's deal with climate change.
Yep.
Make sure that we've got a future in order to build this world into.
Yep.
And work out our political systems.
God, I asked the things that can be fixed.
No,
sorry. It's totally your opinion. I mean, God damn.
And it's just my opinion, of course. An opinion is not fact. But I'd love to change those things. And if I could change any other things, I would love to support the arts industry a little bit more en masse.
Okay. So we've got one last question. This is the toughest question.
I'm bracing myself.
Okay. So it goes, if you died and came back as a board game, what board game do you think would best describe Joanne Hartstone?
Oh, gosh.
Now, while you're thinking about it,
I have to go through all my board games.
We've had yesterday Matt Tarrant said Mousetrap.
That's a great one, yeah.
And considering he's a magician and it's pretty cool. I was like, you know what? That is so right. He goes, sometimes you get caught, it goes up and down, and sometimes you hear the click, click, click. And I had to look it up. I'm like, Jesus, I remember playing that.
Yeah.
We've had, we've had Snakes and Ladders. We've had Yahtzee. We've had, Vin Jang said chess. So,
that would be a good one.
Yeah, and I think he's highly intellectual too. We're giving the benefit of the doubt, but I'm just trying to buy you time. I'm not trying to I'm just giving you time to think, because some people haven't played board games for a long time.
No. Well, do you know, I might actually say a board game that not many people have heard about. I might be Secret Hitler. Have you heard of Secret Hitler? He quickly Googles Secret Hitler. What is Secret Hitler?
No.
So,
my computer's run out of batteries.
So Secret Hitler is a game of strategy and intrigue in which you're split into two different political factions. So as a group, you have to have at least 5 people to play it. And one of you pick out a card, one of you is Secret Hitler. And so you then have to work out where the mystery is, who's lying to you. And
it's old school.
It's very old school, and
this is
awesome.
A first.
It is such a great game. My brother introduced it to me. He plays board games with a great group of South Australians. They're called the Diplomacy Group, and they play a game called Diplomacy, but actually Secret Hitler has come in as one of their other games that they play. And so the reason I say why would this be representative of me? I was thinking, I could do the Game of Life or, Monopoly or whatever. I'm like, nah, not really. They're not really me.
Well, luckily, I haven't heard any of those.
But Secret Hitler is actually about human interaction. It's about words. It's about politics. It's about power. And I'm not saying that I personally am about that, but I love the idea of how humans can work either together in whichever, either you're a right wing and you're working with Hitler to get Hitler into power, or you're left wing and you're a social democrat and you're trying to save the world from Hitler. And I think that this is it, and it's such an intriguing game where you play as a group. And I think that actually that represents a lot of theatre. Obviously, I think of Hitler because of the Reichstag Is Burning and what we've been doing, and the idea of politics and division and polarisation. But then it's a communal game. and it's a game that you have to play as a group. And I feel that theatre is actually a game that you have to play as a group. You can never make a show with one person and nobody watching.
Yeah.
So it's about that human interaction. It's about those negotiations in real time for a purpose. And so I think I'm going to lock it in and say I think I am representative of Secret Hitler.
That is, and the way you piece that together off the cuff, it just goes to show that's what happens with your industry. It involves all of these corruption, politics, getting people involved and trying to get people together to grow it for
a purpose.
For the best of the industry.
Yes.
And not only your industry, for every other person involved in the whole state.
Well, the arts industry is not just for artists.
Correct.
It's for everyone.
Yeah.
Absolutely everybody. And it's a vital part of all of our worlds and our lives. If anybody listening here hasn't been out to the theatre or to go and see a gig or to go in an art gallery, if you haven't done that in over 6 months, book something right now to go and do it, because actually it's kind of like going to the dentist. You should do it every 6 months. Go and have a cultural clean.
I hope more pleasant than me going to the dentist, but I totally understand. Well, there you have it. Joanne Hartstone, it's 2021. It's Adelaide Fringe coming up. You're going to have plenty of other things other than Adelaide Fringe. I mean, Black Box Theatres is if they want to come and follow you. We're going to put all the handles on so people can follow you. And if you're watching this, get your ass into gear, into Adelaide. And if you can't, watch it online.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, do the same, because you might be listening to this in 10 years' time and think, wow, is Adelaide Fringe still going? It's been going for 62 years now, so I'm assuming it's going to go for another 10.
Of course it will.
An amazing story here from Adelaide, and it just goes to prove the amount of talent that we have in this state. We don't talk about it enough. I'll be honest, I haven't gone to the theatre much, but
you need to go have your cultural checkup.
I'm going to my dentist checkup, but it's going to be a lot more pleasurable than that. But just hearing a story, what you've done, how creative you are, producing, business owner, you've got everything going on, and people need to make sure they're supporting people like yourself to make sure that the arts industry is more than here to stay, it's here to grow. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. What a great chat.
No worries. Thank you.
Cheers.
That's it.